So hi guys, welcome to another video of another video. What is that? Kanang BioLab journal nato. So now we'll be starting or going with exercise 8, which is respiration and breathing. So nako sa Trace Dapit para kanang fresh ang air. Breathing, nice ang air. Okay, anyways. Okay, so magsugod ta. So what is the difference between respiration and breathing? So respiration is a largely chemical process, and of course within the individual cells for production of energy. It is accompanied by gaseous exchange, taking in oxygen and taking out or giving off carbon dioxide. So ang breathing naman, it's wow naman. Ang breathing, it is also known as ventilation, and it is the active process of moving respiratory medium, water or air across exchange surfaces. So, sa ato ang lab journal kay nagbuhat ang experiment on the frog or toad niya. Nagbuhat sa experiment in human. So, unsa may difference sa respiratory system sa frog o toad sa humans? So, ang frog o toads kay wala sila diaphragm. They breathe through buccal pumps. Nya mo respire sila sa skin o sa lungs. As for humans, we have a diaphragm that allows breathing. Kay, ang diaphragm. Diba naman sa mechanism ana, yes. And humans respire mainly through the lungs. Okay, so ang frogs kay they also have gill respiration, which is when they are tadpoles. So water breathers sila and they have gills. And also their respiration is also divided into two kung may mga sila frogs kay from tadpoles iniga-frog nila kay mo metamorphose man sila into air breathing frogs. So air na ilang i-breathe. Yes. Oh my gosh. So ang kaning duha ka mechanisms of respiration nila is called the cutaneous and the pulmonary respiration. So the pulmonary respiration is the breathing through lungs, and the cutaneous respiration is the breathing of the frog through their skin. So let's go to the pathway of pulmonary ventilation. So the pathway of pulmonary ventilation sa mga frogs kay the air goes into the external nares, then into the internal nares, then the buccal cavity, the glottis, and the laryngotracheal chamber, then to the bronchi, and then to the lungs. So, ato na silang i-define. Ang external nares kay katong buslot sa gawas. So, external man siya sa gawas sa frogs. Ang internal nares kay ang kanang naa sa sulod kay ni siya nga picture. Charan! Okay. So, ang task niya kay mo transfer inhaled air from the external nares. So, mulusot siyang sumuagi siya diha. So, diba, next is the buccal cavity. So, ang buccal cavity kay mo rin siya. Taran! Ay, dili ato sa frog na. Okay, anyways. So, sunod kini ato siya sa glottis. The glottis is the entrance for food and air. So, it is the slit opening of the larynx. And a larynx is also known as the voice box. It is a round or oval-ish structure having cartilaginous walls. Yes. Okay, so kaning vocal cords kay a pair of delicate white bands each located at the side of the glottis, and sound is produced by the vibration of these. Oh my gosh, okay, next is the laryngotracheal chamber. So the so the laryngotracheal chamber is in charge of the vocalization and the passageway of air. Next is the bronchi. The bronchi is a pair of short tubes from the larynx, each goes to the lungs. And a passageway of air from the larynx to the lungs and vice versa. So, di ba, niagi na siya sa bronchi, sumato na siya sa lungs. So, the lungs are a pair of big, thin-walled sacs and are located at the anterior portion of the pleuroperitoneal cavity. And this is surrounded by the visceral pleura, which is the outermost covering of the lungs, and is lined by simple squamous epithelium. Okay, so the lungs contain alveoli, which if singular siya kay alveolus. And alveoli are what we call the air sacs, and they are small thin-walled chambers which are richly supplied with blood capillaries and is the site of gas exchange between the lungs and the blood sa ato ang mga frogs. Okay, so basically air enters the pocket of buccal cavity through the external and internal layers. Then the glottis opens and elastic recoil of the lungs and compression of the chest wall reduces the lung volume. Then air is forced out of the lungs and out of the mouth and the nares. So the mouth and the nares close and the floor of the buccal cavity rises and air is pushed into the lungs. So if the glottis closes, gas exchange occurs in the lungs. So now let's go to the physiology. How do you pronounce it? Physiology, tara, of breathing. So the process can be divided into the pulmonary ventilation and the gas exchange. So pulmonary ventilation is the mechanical process of moving air into and out of the lungs, while gas exchange is the exchange of gases across the respiratory membrane. So now let's go to the mechanism of breathing. So air moves from higher pressure to the lower pressure. So inspiration, wow, or inhalation happens when the diaphragm contracts, increasing the volume in the thoracic cavity. And it leads to a decrease in the pressure. Thus, air moves from the atmosphere into the lungs. Okay, air moves from higher pressure to lower pressure. So expiration, which is exhalation, takes place when the diaphragm relaxes, increasing the pressure in the thoracic cavity and thus air moving out of the lungs. Okay, higher to lower pressure of air again. So now we'll have the respiratory sound. In the larynx, if you will place a stethoscope in this area, you can hear the tracheal and bronchial sound. The triangle of oscillation is the ideal area for the listening to sound because the thoracic cage is not covered by muscles. And healthy lungs, kay smooth ang flow of air into and out of the lungs, and if congested ang lungs, kay wheezing or rattling. Kanang matumog doktor bitaw tapos may stethoscope sila. Napaminaw nila imong dere or sa luyo ka na. Basta, maminaw ang doktor sa imuhang respiratory sound, so makabaw na sila kung healthy inyong lungs or congested inyong lungs at that moment. So now let's go to the chemical factors related to breathing. So the respiratory cycle, which is also the breathing cycle, is equivalent to one inhalation and one exhalation. So the respiratory rate is equal to the number of breaths the number of breaths basta ikapila ka mo ginhawa nya divided by the time or minute nga kanang imong gitayman. Yeah, vary na siya if mag-sit quietly ka or magdagan-dagan ka or like nakagibuhat kay kung maglingkod ka kay lower ang respiratory rate niya, kung magdagan-dagan ka or like gikan ka buhat og extraneous activity or something kay high ang imong respiratory rate. So cellular respiration is higher in running compared to sitting because you need more energy in running. Thus more carbon dioxide is produced as waste product from the cellular respiration. And chemoreceptors will detect this change, and this will send signals to your brain, and your brain will then send signals to increase your breathing or respiratory rate so that you can exhale the excess carbon dioxide and inhale more oxygen. Okay, so we now have the breath holding baseline rate. So it is your breath holding capacity without the effect of other factors. The relation of carbon dioxide and breath holding is that the level of carbon dioxide in your blood will be elevated in the breathing of air in the paper bag, so therefore decreasing your breath holding capacity. So if you inhaled and exhaled maximally, carbon dioxide in your blood has been decreased and it increases your breath holding capacity. Kaya in hyperventilation, you exhale more carbon dioxide. The explanation for this is that your brain cannot detect oxygen levels, so your brain will use the amount of carbon dioxide as an indirect signal as to the level of oxygen inside your body. So mas taas ang carbon dioxide kay ang interpretation sa inyong brain, ato ang brain rather, is low ang oxygen. So the brain will dictate us to inhale ASAP. So there is an urge to breathe. So if low ang carbon dioxide, kaya ang interpretation sa brain is taas ang oxygen level. So brain will not dictate you to inhale as soon as possible. Kay, ay wala lang, normal lang yung breathing. So like, dili ra ka mag, that's for air. So, ito siya. So, high carbon dioxide levels can also change the acid-base condition in your body. Carbon dioxide can react with water to form carbonic acid, thus making your body fluid more acidic. So, naay lahi-lahi nga sakit or like mura siya kanang kuan na related sa ato ang lungs or breathing. So here are the terms and their descriptions and definitions. So hypoxia is the deficiency in the amount of oxygen reaching the tissues, and dyspnea, yeah, I think mo na siya, is the difficult or labored breathing, and orthopnea is the shortness of breath that occurs when lying flat. So like, magigda ka, you know, murag makulangan kag hangin or something. Apnea is the suspension of breathing. So walay movement sa muscles of inhalation and the volume of the lungs initially remains unchanged. And as for asphyxia is a condition arising when the body is deprived of oxygen, causing unconsciousness or even death or suffocation. Okay, so maura to siya so far. It's very short, but if you were doing the experiment, I think it would have been dugay-dugay sad since we're dealing with see, mag-table pamanta. But yes, we were only tasked to talk about the different parts of the throat and the respiratory system and breathing and respiration. So, more to siya. It's a very short presentation and I hope naman nasaktan. Bye! Binira ito! Through buccal ulit.